He was a farmer. That is where this story begins. Not on a longship. Not in a great hall surrounded by warriors and gold and the smoke of 100 torches. In a field. A man who worked the earth, who raised animals, who lived the ordinary life of an ordinary man in 9th century Scandinavia. And then something shifted in him, something that no amount of comfortable living could quiet. A hunger, a restlessness, a need to see what was beyond the edge of the known world. His name was Ragnar Lothbrok, and this is his story. Scandinavia, the 9th century. The Viking Age was already underway. Norse raiders had been striking the coastlines of Britain, Ireland, and Francia for decades. They came in their longships, shallow-drafted, fast, capable of navigating rivers as well as open seas. And they arrived without warning, took what they wanted, and disappeared back into the gray northern water before any organized defense could stop them. The world feared the Norse, and within the Norse world, reputation was everything. A man without a reputation was a man without a future. Fame, in the Viking sense, was not vanity. It was survival. It was the thing that attracted warriors to your banner, allies to your cause, enemies who thought twice before crossing you. To build that reputation, you had to go out and earn it. Ragnar went out. Now, a word of honesty before we go further. Ragnar Lothbrok sits at one of the most difficult intersections of history and legend that exists in the Norse world. He appears in multiple sagas. The saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, the tale of Ragnar's sons, the Gesta Danorum, written by Saxo Grammaticus. He is mentioned in connection with real historical events, including a famous Viking raid on Paris in 845 AD. But the historical record is fragmentary. The sagas were written centuries after the events they describe. They mix real people with legendary figures, historical raids with mythological adventures. There may have been a real Ragnar, possibly a composite of several Viking leaders whose exploits merged over generations of storytelling into a single extraordinary figure. Or there may have been one man whose life was genuinely so remarkable that even the exaggerated legend barely captures it. History tells us one version. Legend tells another. The truth lives somewhere in between. So let us tell the story. The sagas tell us that Ragnar first made his name not at sea, but on land. A local jarl had a problem. A serpent, a massive legendary creature, was terrorizing his lands, threatening his livestock, his people, his daughter Thora, who was being held captive by her own fear of the beast. The jarl offered a reward. Whoever killed the serpent could have his daughter's hand in marriage. Most men declined. Ragnar did not. He fashioned himself a crude suit of armor, boiled leather covered in sand and tar to protect him from the serpent's poison. And he went and killed it. He married Thora. Now, whether this was a literal serpent or a legendary embellishment of a real political victory, we cannot know. The Norse loved their monsters, but the principle underneath the story is real. Ragnar was the man who did what other men refused to do. Thora died young. Ragnar was left without a wife and without the anchor of the life he had built. So he went back to the sea. And on one of his voyages to the island of Geitland, some sources say he encountered a woman named Aslog. Aslog was washing clothes by a stream when Ragnar's men arrived. The stories about Aslog fill entire sagas of their own. She was, by legend, the daughter of the great dragon slayer Sigurd and the Valkyrie Brynhild, which made her, in the mythological sense, practically royalty of the gods. Whether that lineage was literal or legendary, Aslog was formidable. She matched Ragnar in wit and wisdom. She gave him sons who would shake the world. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. The raid on Paris. In 845 AD, a Viking fleet sailed up the Seine River. The Franks, the Christian empire of the Carolingians, inheritors of Charlemagne's legacy, were the most powerful political entity in Western Europe. The Viking fleet did not care. They sailed past the defenses. They sacked the city. They camped in the heart of the Frankish kingdom. King Charles the Bald, the Frankish ruler, grandson of Charlemagne, faced an agonizing choice. He paid them 7,000 pounds of silver, the greatest ransom in the Frankish record to that point. And the Vikings sailed away. Now, the historical sources disagree about who led this raid. The Frankish chronicles say it was a leader named Ragnar. The Norse sagas say it was Ragnar Lothbrok. Whether they are the same man is debated. What is not debated is what happened. A Viking fleet sailed to the heart of the most powerful kingdom in Europe, took its capital, and left richer than they arrived. The legend says Ragnar did it, and the legend says he was not satisfied. He went back. Not immediately. Years passed. Ragnar grew older. His sons grew up. Bjorn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, Hvitserk, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, Ubbe, names that would write themselves across the history of England, Francia, and the Mediterranean. The sagas tell us that Ragnar, growing old, became troubled by something. His sons were becoming greater than him. He could feel it, the way old lions can feel the young ones circling. He could have stepped back, retired, handed the longships to the next generation, and lived out his years in comfort. Ragnar was not built for comfort. He assembled a small fleet, deliberately small, the sagas say, so that his sons would not join him, so that this would be his achievement alone. And he sailed to England, to Northumbria, where a king named Aella ruled. The raid went wrong. Storms scattered the fleet. The Northumbrians were ready. Ragnar was captured. And then came the end that the Norse world never forgot. King Aella of Northumbria executed Ragnar by throwing him into a pit of snakes. The sagas record Ragnar's final words as he died. Defiant, almost amused, turning even his death into a story. How the little piglets would squeal, he said, if they knew what the old boar suffers. He was talking about his sons. He was right. What followed is one of the most extraordinary acts of collective vengeance in European history. The Great Heathen Army. In 865 AD, a Viking force descended on England unlike anything the island had seen before. It was not a raid. It was an invasion, led by Ragnar's sons. Ivar the Boneless commanding the strategy, Bjorn Ironside commanding the warriors. The great heathen army moved through Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia. They captured King Aella. The sagas record that they killed him using a method called the Blood Eagle, a ritual execution of such severity that modern historians still debate whether it was literal or legendary. What is certain is that Aella died. And Ragnar's sons did not stop there. They carved out the Danelaw, a large portion of England under Norse control, that shaped the English language, English law, and English culture in ways that echo to this day. The farmer who became a king became a legend, and his legend built an empire. The modern world has rediscovered Ragnar in ways that would have delighted the Norse storytellers. The television series Vikings brought him to a global audience, portrayed with magnetic intensity by Travis Fimmel. For millions of people, Ragnar became the entry point into the Norse world. A way of understanding a culture, an era, a set of values that most people had never encountered. But the real Ragnar, or the legendary Ragnar, which may be the same thing, is more interesting than any television show. Because the television Ragnar exists in a story that has already decided he is extraordinary. The historical legendary Ragnar existed in a world that had not yet decided anything about him. He had to go out and make it true. That is the part that no camera can fully capture. 5 lessons from the life of Ragnar Lothbrok. Lesson 1. Reputation is not vanity, it is strategy. In the Viking world, fame was survival. A man with a great reputation attracted allies, intimidated enemies, and opened doors that remained closed to everyone else. Ragnar understood this. Every raid, every duel, every victory was not just a victory. It was a story that would travel ahead of him and prepare the ground. In any field, the reputation you build through real action is the most powerful asset you can carry. It walks into rooms before you do. Lesson 2. Do the thing other men refuse to do. The Serpent Story. Whether literal or legend, contains a principle that runs through Ragnar's entire life. There was always a thing that needed doing, and a long line of men who had decided not to do it. Ragnar stepped forward. That pattern, repeated across a lifetime, is how ordinary men become extraordinary ones. The opportunities that matter most are almost always disguised as the things nobody wants to volunteer for. Lesson 3. Hunger does not care how comfortable you are. Ragnar could have stopped at any point. After the serpent, after Thora, after his first successful raids, after Paris. He had enough. By any reasonable measure, he had already won. But the hunger did not stop. And rather than fight it or shame it, he listened to it. The most dangerous thing you can do to a person built for expansion is give them enough comfort to stop expanding. The hunger is information. Listen to it. Lesson 4. How you meet the end is part of the story. Ragnar died in a pit of snakes in a foreign king's dungeon. He did not beg. He did not break. The words the sagas give him, "The little piglets will squeal," turned his death into a battle cry that his sons carried across an entire country. You do not always get to choose your ending. You almost always get to choose how you meet it. The quality of that choice echoes longer than you will ever know. Lesson 5. The sons you raise are the raids you cannot go on yourself. Ragnar's greatest achievement was not Paris. It was Bjorn. It was Ivar. It was the sons who carried what he had built and took it further than he could have gone alone. The most durable form of any ambition is not what you accomplish in your own lifetime. It is what you build in the people who come after you, who take the values, the hunger, the refusal to accept limitations, and carry them into a world you will never see. He started as a farmer. He ended as a legend whose sons reshaped a continent. He may have been one man. He may have been several. He may have been the story a people needed to tell about what they were capable of. And 9 centuries later, we are still telling it. Because that is what happens when a life is lived without a ceiling. The world keeps making room for the story. This has been Legends of the Ancient World, an Alivinci University History Channel production.